11-year-old girl found in the Trinity River near Houston yesterday had a rock tied around her to weigh her down.
Livingston, Texas. A small town tucked into the quiet woods of Polk County. Life here is simple, predictable. But that illusion shattered one February morning. Audrii Cunningham was just 11 years old, bright, energetic, loved by her family and friends. She left home like any other day, walking toward her school bus stop. But this time, she never came back. What followed was a frantic search, growing panic, and a discovery that would haunt the entire community. This is the heartbreaking case of Audrii Cunningham. It was a normal morning in the small town of Livingston, Texas. Birds chirped over still trees. School buses rumbled through quiet streets. And inside a small home near the Trinity River, 11-year-old Audrii Cunningham was getting ready for her day. It was the 15th of February, 2024, and Audrii had plans after school. She was looking forward to spending time with friends that weekend. She gave her family a quick goodbye and stepped outside, walking toward her usual bus stop on Lakeside Drive. She did this walk almost every day. The bus stop wasn't far, just a short distance from home. But on that day, Audrii never made it to the bus. When the school called to report her absence, her family was immediately concerned. Audrii wasn't the type to skip school or disappear without saying something. Her father and grandparents began calling around. Friends, neighbors, but no one had seen her. Not that morning, not since she walked out the front door. As the sun dipped below the trees that evening, worry turned to fear. Her family reported her missing. Law enforcement arrived quickly. They knew the first 24 hours were critical. A search party was organized. Flashlights cut through the woods. Helicopters hovered above tree lines. K-9 units sniffed the banks of the nearby Trinity River. The town came together, holding on to hope, but that hope was fragile. An Amber Alert went out across Texas, with Audrii's photo and description shared by local and national media. Her innocent smile stared back from television screens and cell phones. Everyone was asking the same thing. How could a little girl vanish in broad daylight just steps from her home? For 5 long days, the community searched, prayed, feared the worst, but clung to the possibility that Audrii might still be alive. But behind the scenes, police were already looking closely at someone in her life, someone she had trusted, and the truth they uncovered would be even more horrifying than anyone had imagined. As the search for Audrii stretched into its second day, law enforcement knew they had to move fast. There were no signs of forced entry at her home, no clear evidence at the bus stop, and no reports of suspicious activity in the area. But one name kept coming up. A man who had seen Audrii that morning. A man her family knew. Her name was missing, but the questions were circling around Don Stephen McDougal, a 42-year-old friend of the family who lived in a trailer behind their house. McDougal wasn't a stranger. In fact, he had frequently taken Audrii to the bus stop in the past. She trusted him. Her family trusted him. That morning, he was the last known person to have seen her. Police quickly turned their attention to him. His criminal history raised immediate red flags, including a conviction for enticement of a child back in 2008. That conviction alone made him a registered sex offender. He was also known to be erratic, often unstable, and had previously violated probation. When questioned, McDougal was cooperative at first. He admitted to being with Audrii that morning, but claimed he had dropped her off safely. Still, something about his story didn't sit right. Investigators dug deeper. Security footage from a nearby residence showed his vehicle, a dark blue 2003 Chevrolet Suburban, driving near the area where Audrii had gone missing. It was seen parked near the Trinity River Dam, a remote, wooded area with water access. Suspicious, investigators obtained a search warrant for the vehicle. Inside, they found a large rock tied with rope, similar to something you might use to weigh something down in water. The discovery added a dark, chilling layer to the investigation. By the 16th of February, just a day after her disappearance, McDougal was arrested, not for Audrey's disappearance, but on an unrelated assault charge. It was a way to hold him while they worked to gather evidence. The community watched as police towed his SUV and combed through it for clues. They searched the surrounding woods, the lake, and the dam area. All signs pointed to McDougal, but without a body, all they had were suspicions and circumstantial evidence. Then, on the 20th of February, those suspicions turned into horror. The 20th of February, 2024. 5 days after Audrii Cunningham vanished, hope was hanging by a thread. Her face was everywhere, on news broadcasts, on social media, on flyers taped to storefronts and gas station windows. But behind the scenes, investigators feared the worst. That morning, the search team was combing through the area near the Trinity River Dam, following the path where Don Stephen McDougal's vehicle had been spotted. It was remote, wooded, the kind of place that would be hard to find unless you knew it was there. And then they found her. Audrey's body was discovered in the water near the Trinity River, not far from the dam. The search was over, and the entire town of Livingston felt the weight of the news like a punch to the chest. The little girl with the big smile was gone. She had been killed, and her body placed in the river, weighed down by a rock tied with rope, the same kind of rock police had found in McDougal's SUV days earlier. It wasn't just a connection, it was a match. Police immediately rearrested McDougal. This time, it wasn't for assault or suspicion, it was for the murder of Audrii Cunningham. The charges were upgraded to capital murder, and the Polk County District Attorney announced that they would be seeking the death penalty. For many, it was the only punishment harsh enough to match the crime. The town mourned. Candlelight vigils were held. Pink ribbons were tied around trees and light poles. Her family released statements thanking the community for their support and begging for justice. But no amount of justice would bring Audrey back. What remained was grief, shock, and an unshakable question. How could someone she trusted so deeply betray her in such a monstrous way? The death of Audrii Cunningham sent shockwaves far beyond Livingston.
I still wake up in the mornings, I wake up hoping this is a bad dream and she's gonna come run to me and hug me.
It wasn't just the tragedy of a child taken too soon. It was the betrayal, the horror that someone so close, someone trusted, had been capable of such a crime. As the news spread, people across Texas and the country demanded answers. How could a man with a known history of child enticement be living so close to a child? How had he earned the family's trust? And could this have been prevented? These weren't just emotional questions. They became political ones, too. Lawmakers began pushing for change. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick announced plans to introduce Audrey's Law, legislation aimed at strengthening penalties for violent offenses against children and closing gaps in the state's monitoring of registered sex offenders. The hope was simple: to make sure no other child would suffer the same fate because of a failure in the system. But for Audrey's family, nothing could undo the pain. Her grandparents, her father, her friends, they were left holding memories instead of her hand, her empty bedroom, her drawings, her favorite toys, all reminders of a life interrupted. In the months that followed, the town of Livingston did its best to heal. Vigils turned to memorials. Strangers brought flowers and stuffed animals. Ribbons in Audrey's favorite colors still line the streets near her home. But the wound is still fresh. Don Stephen McDougal remains behind bars, charged with capital murder. If convicted, he could face the death penalty, but no punishment will ever truly be enough. Audrii's story is a painful reminder that monsters don't always lurk in the shadows. Sometimes they walk right beside us, hidden in plain sight. And for one small town in Texas, life will never feel quite as safe again. If you found this story as heartbreaking as we did, help keep Audrii's memory alive. Like the video, share it with others, and subscribe to Mystery Unlocked for more true stories that deserve to be told.